Welcome, everyone, to our webinar, Using Mercy in Outreach. My name is Pastor Mark Raby. Was a missionary in Ethiopia. I'm transitioning off the field. I'm now Director of Recruitment for the Office of International Mission, and we're excited to have Britt Odemba today. She's an educational consultant serving in Nairobi, Kenya. Britt, if you'd like to share with us today.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you so you can see my presentation for you. Well, it's good to be here with everyone today, and my name is Britt Odemba. I'm an LCMS missionary serving as an education consultant in Nairobi, Kenya. And today I was asked to talk about how I use mercy in my outreach with specifically children here in Kenya through education. And so I want to share a little bit about my story. I came to Kenya in 2013, and my first job was to come to a place called Kibera. Kibera is the largest slum in Africa. And this is a place directly in Nairobi, Kenya. And in this place, in Kibera, I was asked to come to a school, a primary school called Karama Academy at Springs of Life Lutheran Church. And so when I first saw Kibera, and when I first came in 2013, of course, it was a real big learning curve. I had to figure out what life was like. Coming from California, I knew that this would be a different lifestyle and something that I needed to learn more about. And so really, I took the time in the first couple of months to just walk around Kibera, tour around with people who knew the area, including the teachers at Karama, so that I could get to know who I was going to be serving here in Kenya. So what did I learn? Well, I immediately learned what the children experience in Kibera, because I wanted to, coming from California, where children are very privileged and come from homes that are doing well, and then going straight to Kibera, where it's a slum. And so I really needed to learn what the children were experiencing. So how could I show mercy to them? How could I be compassionate to them? So what did I learn? Well, I learned that there was limited food at home. Most families were single parent homes. A lot of single moms in Kibera that are taking care of 2, 3, 4 children or more by themselves. Parents are roughly making about $5 a day, depending on what their profession is. Most of them are what we call hustlers, where they are day laborers. They might have little shops within Kibera where they sell produce, or they sell different items within Kibera. Some of them are day laborers in other parts of Nairobi, so they travel by public transport, and they might work as guards or house help, amongst many, many other jobs. But roughly, parents are making about $5 a day. And families in Kibera, there's multiple children. Older ones are taking care of the younger ones. You can see in this picture kind of the standard house size. It's very small, usually a 10 by 12 foot room. And the whole family is living in one room. So there might be one bed set aside in part of the room where the parent will sleep, or parents will sleep. Children tend to sleep on the floor in their sitting room area. Even though it's one room, they kind of divide up their room into different areas. So these are the things that I learned when I would tour around Kibera. And it was really important for me to know this, so I knew who I was serving. And so after doing this and listening to the people and visiting people within Kibera, that's really when my work started at Karama. So if you look at this picture, compared to the other pictures of the slum, you'll see that Karama is what I call an oasis. It's very green, very lush. It has lots of trees, and it is still situated in Kibera. It's on the western side. But what's unique about this property is that the church owns this whole big property, and they've kept it for the most part just for their church as well as for the school. And so there are not people that are squatting on the property, and so there's enough room for all the kids to play, which is so important, because if you saw the first picture I showed you of Kibera, you would see that there's not a lot of space between different buildings. And so Karama is different. So what was my job really at Karama? Well, it was really to create a safe environment for these children, and really just showing compassion. Mercy is compassion. And so what is it that we need to do to make sure that these children who live in these kinds of circumstances have a safe place and a loving place? And so that was my main goal when I first came to Karama. There were 3 teachers there, and we really worked hard in building this environment for these students. And as we continued to add more staff, it was important to keep that goal for them. So how did we help these vulnerable children? Well, we created a good and safe environment, as you can see from the picture, keeping it clean and healthy for the kids. Providing healthy meals was really, really important, making sure that they had a breakfast as well as a lunch, because sometimes these would be the only meals or the only big meals that the children would receive throughout the day. It was also important to hire local, passionate teachers, people who lived in Kibera, who knew that life, or who know that life, and who were able to really be able to help their own community and these children that they are surrounded by, even in their own homes. We also really wanted to create fun extracurricular activities for these children to ensure that they just had fun, really. Checking their health. Oftentimes these children would get sick in the different places where they lived. Cleanliness is not always around, and so they get sick often. So making sure that at school that their health was good, and if they were sick, that we ensured that we were able to help the parent get the medication that the children would need. But most importantly, we just really loved the children unconditionally. They come from really hard backgrounds and so many different things that they experience. I could go on about what they experience and it would make you sad. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. But what I want to talk about is that because of these hardships, it's so important that these children had this safe environment where they could just be kids. And so these are just a few pictures of our kids just enjoying their time at school, whether it be artwork or just being with one another or listening to their teachers. And so this is really important, and just being able to have mercy on these kids and show compassion to them, because that's what they really need in life. So that's a little bit about Karama, and just talking about how just allowing them to be kids and just showing love to them, and so. But a part of my other position that I do is help with the Project 24 program, which includes a child sponsorship program called Christ Care for Children. And so many of you might be aware of this program or not, but it is a program where people in the States can sponsor children in Kenya, and their sponsorship goes towards their education. And so currently we have 7 projects or 7 children's boarding facilities where the children stay during the school time, and they stay at these facilities and then they attend a Lutheran sponsored school that is nearby, as well as they attend a Lutheran church on Sundays. And so how do I show mercy to these children? Well, it's really through the work of the donors and through my work that these children are able to receive a good education, which is so important in Kenya. These children come from different backgrounds, not necessarily the slum like the children from Karama, but these children come from all over. And so we have some children that are Maasai. These 3 boys that are pictured here are from the Maasai tribe. And the boy Bernard is standing by a typical Maasai home. And so this is his home that he is at. And then there's another boy that is with his grandparents. And I wanted to show you kind of the different styles of living. Some of the houses are made out of stick and mud. Some of them are a little more substantial, still made out of stick and mud, but might have metal sheeting for the roofs and look more like a home rather than a hut. So these children come from all different types of backgrounds. And so again, just as I learned about Kibera and where the children from Karama came from, it was important for me to also just learn more about these students that we help through the Project 24 program. So the picture of Bernard by his hut, well, this is now a picture of Bernard going to secondary school. And so really through this program, we provide an education and so many other possibilities for these students. Bernard is from a pastoralist type tribe. And so if he were to grow up without an education, he would be a herder. He would be herding goats and sheep and maybe cows. And that would be his lifestyle. But it is through this program and through the education that now he has different possibilities. And so we're not sure exactly what he wants to be when he grows up. He's in secondary school now, but we're just excited that we have the opportunity to give him a different future. And he is excited about that as well. So that's really about the Project 24 program. So with this webinar, I wanted to share with you a little bit about how you can show mercy locally. I was asked, if people come to this webinar and they're interested to know, how do I show mercy in my own community? I'm not one that I can travel overseas and be a missionary. I didn't think that I could do it, and I did, but there's so many different ways that you can do it within your own church. And I've seen so many other churches in America that are doing this. So one thing that I really want to share is, and what I've learned through my work here in Kenya, is really get to know the people. One of the first things that my boss, Reverend Shawan Trump, told me when I first came to Kenya was to listen. He's like, listen and observe. And that was one of the best pieces of advice he gave me, because it was so important for me to really learn about the people that I was serving. And so even locally, you might think, well, they're all American, and I know who Americans are, but really take a look around your church. Who are the people that are around your church, and who is your community? And listen to them. Take the time to talk with them and listen to their stories, listen to their struggles, their challenges, what they might, their dreams, so that you get to know how you can help them their best way. One of the things that I did when I first came to Kenya was to take a tour of Kibera, and I kind of mentioned this before. Here's a picture of me and my colleague Shara in the top right. And she and I went around and walked through Kibera just to see what life was like. Now, obviously, it's a little different living there. And I never did live in the slum, but you can learn a lot just by walking around the neighborhoods and the communities and visiting homes. And there's another picture of Shara and I in the bottom right, where we were up in the northwest region of Kenya, visiting families that actually do live in huts like this. And so just taking the time to really know who you're serving is important, know where they live, and become one of them is certainly something that will be cherished by those people. They'll treat you more with respect because they see that you have taken time to visit them and taken the time to really learn more about them because they know that you're not from their culture. And this even goes for places in America too. So the other thing that I recommend really is to just be present and with a willing heart, and just be ready to serve in any way possible. And one of the things that I enjoy is always being with children. And so one of the pictures that I have here is a picture of me with the girls from Project 24 in Udom, and they wanted to take my colleague and I on a tour. And that was some of the best, hour spent for me, because I was able to learn more about them. They asked tons of questions about America, and it was just a great bonding time. So be present with a willing heart is really important. And lastly, I just want to share, have a good support system. For me, it's so important, especially living overseas, to have people that really help you with your ministry. And of course, I have my husband, Mika, who is Kenyan, and he has supported me throughout my ministry and has explained so much to me that different things that I might not understand. And he's also been very patient and kind as I struggle sometimes to learn more. And also the teachers at Karama and the site managers from the Project 24 program, which are shown here. These people, I've surrounded with them all the time so that I can learn more and that we can serve together as a team. So that is just a little bit about my mercy work in Kenya. I am so thankful that you are all here and that you have taken the time to listen to what I do here in Kenya and how I can use mercy in my outreach through education for these children. But more importantly, I just want to encourage you as you serve in your own communities, that you just continue to show compassion to people. When I see the news in America and see what is going on, I feel like it's so important that compassion needs to be shared with everyone. So I encourage you to do that. When I'm usually on furlough and I visit Lutheran schools, and I always tell the kids, you guys are missionaries too. And so I encourage you, adults even, that you are missionaries wherever you are. You don't have to live overseas. And so I just encourage you to show mercy and to share the love of God with the people around you. So thank you.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you so much for your presentation. Even though we've worked together so long, it's always a joy to see what you're doing and how God is using you there, not only in Nairobi, but beyond. Please keep in mind, everyone, that you can support the work of Britt through lcms.org/Odemba. And then also you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at LCMS International Mission. So if there are any questions that you might have at this time, we would like to take those now so that Britt could have the opportunity to give you a little more information on the work that she does.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to stop sharing, but it won't allow me at the moment.
Oh, and there's also a poll to take. All right. So one of the questions that's asked, Britt, is how many languages are spoken in Kenya?
Well, there's over 45 tribes in Kenya. And so, obviously the main language is English and Kiswahili. English is taught in the schools. Kiswahili is the native language. But then because of the 45 tribes, they all have a mother tongue language, is what we call it. And then even within those languages, there can be different dialects. So it's really hard to say for me. I would say 45 and beyond would be my answer. So.
And then in what language did they teach in the schools?
They teach in English, even starting at the preschool level. They speak a little more Kiswahili at the very beginning because the children mainly speak Kiswahili at home. But really by class 1, they are completely speaking English. And Kiswahili is a subject in school.
I know a lot of your supporters are excited to see you again, and they'd like to know when your next home service would be.
As we say in Kenya, God willing, we hope to visit next year in the summertime.
Do you have any more questions for Britt? I know I very much enjoyed your presentation and seeing compassion very much come through in your work at ministry there in Kenya, and your heart. I know your heart for the students and for the people you serve. One of the other questions that we have is, I mean, how much time, or do you teach in the schools, or are you mainly doing, or in Karama, or and how much do you interact with the students?
Mm-hmm.
Or does consulting time? Go ahead.
Yeah, my time at Karama is less than it was when I first came to Kenya. When I first came to Kenya, I was there every day, as they had no administrator and they only had 3 teachers. So I really was in the trenches and teaching, as well as being an administrator, as well as being the bookkeeper. However, in the last 8 years, we have hired locals to take over those positions, which is really what you want as a missionary. You want the locals to take over your ministry. And so currently we have an administrator and an accountant and all the teachers that we need. So I still serve on the school board, and I still go to the school usually like 3 or 4 times a month, just to check in and see how they're doing and support them in any way possible. And of course, I love seeing the children too. So we started a basketball program, so I often take my own children there so we can watch the kids play basketball too.
Right. So what is one of your greatest joys, if you could choose one of your greatest joys in serving so far?
I think just learning from the locals and spending time with them. I learned so much from them. I'm humbled by the compassion and the community feel that they exude every time you meet with them, and just talking with them one-on-one. Yeah, I think that's my greatest joy, is really having those one-on-one conversations with the Kenyan people that I work with.
I know there's other projects that go on, that you work with, Project 24, and the various other areas where the students stay. Is there a level of involvement that students might have, like for instance in Othoro or one of the other Project 24 places, that the students are involved, or what does that kind of look like?
So I'm sorry, is your question asking what the program looks like for?
Yeah, well, like in Othoro, for example, you know, they might have an agricultural project where the children might be involved. Is that something they still do or have done in the past?
Yeah, they do. So the children, I mean, they live at these boarding facilities throughout the school year, but they also have different, what we call sustainability projects at each of the project or the boarding facilities. So they might be taking care of cows or planting crops, which all are important, because living in Kenya, these tend to be still skills that you need regardless of your profession. And so it's important to hold that tradition and make sure that the children don't lose out on some of those life skills that are taught at home. And that's why also that they do go home to their family clans during the holidays, because we want to make sure that that bond between them and their families, whether they have parents or not who have passed away, or we just want to make sure that they're bonding with their aunts, uncles, grandparents, guardians, and learning those skills, so they always have those skills when they grow older.
Now, what are the ways in which like the families of these children are supported? And are there ways, for instance, people who are viewing today might be able to support that?
One of the biggest supports is just supporting the children. Oftentimes these families have 8 or 9 children. And so just being able to support a child and support a child's education is really huge for these families. And so during the pandemic, obviously the children were not in school. And so we really partnered with the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya and came up with the idea to do food distribution during the last year, because it was a little bit more of a burden having these children at home. And so we wanted to ensure that the children were still getting good meals, and also that the local church were visiting these families in their own homes and seeing the needs. And wherever the local church could come alongside these families, they did, not only with food, but just with words of prayer and spending time with these families, which is really important.
Are there other ways, or at least could you say a little bit more about Project 24, how that's connected also to the church and how we work through, the ELCK and so on? But talk a little bit more about Project 24, what their various needs are, and maybe how people could help support that.
Sure. So Project 24 is a program designed or was basically built by the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya and LCMS as a partnership program to help the vulnerable children here in Kenya. I had mentioned before, we have 7 children's boarding facilities, and we're building an 8th one now. We have 190 children in these boarding facilities that people in the States are able to sponsor. And so we have a person in the Synod office by the name of Jennifer Hummel, who she helps recruit these people to be sponsors for these children. And then I work alongside her on the Kenyan side, making sure that we get all the communication and the information needed on these children. So that's just a little bit about the Project 24 program. I think someone is putting the website so you can learn more about the program too. On the website on lcms.org.
Thank you. One of the other things is, often people want to come and serve, and I know we do have short-term teams, but how might people be connected that way if they wanted to, join a mission team or bring a congregation? Is there a way in which they can best serve through LCMS?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's many different ways to serve with the LCMS. Because of the pandemic, our short-term visitors have been limited, but that's starting to open up now, now that travel is opening up more. But there's definitely different ways to serve. I've had teams come in and come to Karama and do workshops for the teachers, as well as do some activities with the children, whether it be Bible stories, games, things like that. It really just depends on the gifts of the short-term visitors. We've also had sports camps at Karama, where people have come and helped lead a sports camp. We've had people come and visit the Project 24 sites as well, and just get to know a little bit more about that program. So, and then of course, there's other things of Mercy medical teams, things like that.
Excellent, thank you. And I also know if you look in the chat window, for those who are watching today, you can see how you can access that through the servenow.lcms.org. One of the other questions that came up actually over in the chat was how many, I think you mentioned how many children you have, but say again, how many children were in the different schools, and then what are the grades at the academy, and then when do they typically graduate? Mm-hmm. Or what do they do? Do they go on to high school or secondary and so on?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a twofold question. At Karama Academy, we have about 200 students ranging from preschool to class 8. In Project 24, in the 7 boarding facilities, we have 190 children, and those children are from class 1 to class 8. But then we have another 90 or so students that are in high school. And then now we have some students that have even joined university through the Project 24 program.
That's exciting. It's
Yeah.
always good to see the influence and encouragement, as well as to equip them and to see them go on to college and succeed. That's always a blessing.
Yes.
Someone asked, what does your typical day look like, if that's such a thing?
It's a little different every day. But like I mentioned, usually 1 or 2 days a week, I will go to Karama and visit and spend time with the teachers, spend time with the head teacher, and just play with the kids and just see how the school is going. So that day can vary depending on my schedule. The other days, I typically work in our mission office in Nairobi. And I will say I do spend a lot of time on the computer, because inputting all the information from the Project 24 students, which is about 300 students, it takes a while. And so we have a database that keeps track of all these students, and these students write letters to their sponsors. Sponsors write letters back to their students. So just recently we got a batch of letters from sponsors, so sending those to the kids. And then now the kids are going to be writing back to their sponsors. So I scan all those letters and send them. So there is a lot of kind of nitty gritty work. It doesn't sound so exciting, but my favorite part is now that travel is opening up more in Kenya, is visiting the kids, not only at Karama, but the children in the Project 24 programs. And so just recently, a colleague and I went up for a weekend and visited 2 of our sites in Northwest Kenya, and were able to worship with them in church and play with them, and you get a tour of their school and their facilities. And so that's a bit of my schedule. It's up and down and around. And then of course, having my own family too, you add all that stuff in.
That's very good. Yeah. One of the other questions, and I know this is from a pastor, but we've also seen this up in Ethiopia as well. But knowing very well in Africa, unlike here in the West, there's a lot of spiritual warfare that goes on, and I don't know how much you see that there, whether it be in Kibera or elsewhere, and the dependence then on their pastors to find relief from that spiritual oppression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you see it so much in the schools or not,
not so much in the schools. It really, you hear about it when hard times come on families, and people may start to question, why are these families going through these hard times? And so then the question might be, is this family cursed, or what exactly is going on? This circumstance seems kind of unusual. So you hear little bits and pieces of those sorts of things. But really the most important part of our job is to reach with the true gospel, and to tell them that we live in a sinful world. Original sin is here, and these things happen. And things might seem circumstantial, but really what it comes down to is just, it's a hard life. I will say in Kenya, there's a lot of hardships, and you do question, where is God in this? But it is our job as Christians to bring that hope to people.
Yeah. And I know partnering with the ELCK, we very much try and connect, and you all try to connect with the church and direct people to the church, and whether it be worship or having pastors available, or directing them in some way so that they are connected to the church. You're not just standing alone. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And through Project 24, we have a chaplain or a deaconess that is associated with each site, and with them visiting the families, they know the culture. They know what people are thinking more than what we as a missionary could really even fathom.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that the local church are able to reach out to those families and help them through that process. Yeah.
Great. don't see any more questions. I know it's been quite a joy to see firsthand what you're doing there, Britt, in Kenya, and to be able to have the opportunity to share with those who are on today the work you're doing and to be able to answer questions. And just a reminder to folks that there in the chat box, there is a reminder that you can follow International Mission on Facebook or Instagram, and to support the work of Britt through lcms.org/Odemba. It's really been a joy to have you today share with us the ministry and work you're doing, and it's been a blessing to hear your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I really appreciate your support. And if you are some of my supporters, I hope to see you guys soon.